Today's story was written by Reddit user Void Seraph. Part 3. Once the Sol Union declared war against the Galactic Alliance, many of the outer worlds in the edge region of Union space became the battlefields this war was fought. Nysa was the latest of these worlds. Being a garden world, a rarity this far from Earth, Nysa was a major source of food for most of the edge, as well as serving as an important fuel and supply stop for any ships moving to and from the mid-space region. If the Galactic Alliance could take control of Nysa, not only would they starve the edge, they would gain both a strong foundation to continue their invasion, but also a way to keep their own troops fed. Because of this planet's strategic value, the Alliance could not risk destroying it with orbital bombardment, and so a ground invasion was necessary. Garzgak was one of those ground troops. Garzgak was a Yagdala, a species of large herbivorous pseudo-reptiles who served as heavy labour within the Galactic Alliance. Ever since his youth, Garzgak has heard horror stories from the Veshtakis about the parasites, about how those tentacled worms would sneak into people's homes and infect and impersonate children with the parents unaware until it was too late. As a recent father of 2 hatchlings, the sudden news of the parasites resurfacing and having already infected nearly half of these newly discovered humans horrified him. When he heard that the Galactic Alliance was going to war with the parasites, Garzgak was quick to enlist so he could protect his hatchlings and all the other youths in the Alliance. Now that he was here, he began to have doubts. He was told by his superiors that Nysa was turned into a festering hive by the parasites. Yet, despite their enemy fortifications, the planet was idyllic, with no signs of previous conflict between the humans and the parasites. Nevertheless, he pushed those thoughts aside. His job was to deliver ammunition to the front lines and report back to base, and he had already completed the first half of that mission. As he trudged along, he came across the smouldering wreckage of a human settlement. A house, if he remembered correctly. Judging by the looks of it, it must have been hit by some stray artillery fire. He began to pass by, but he noticed the sound of voices and a flickering light coming from inside the wreckage. Though his orders were to return to base immediately, a part of him felt the need to investigate. Though there was a strong risk of it being a parasite, it could also be a fellow Alliance soldier, or even an uninfected human. Against all better judgment, Garzgak entered the ruined house. Once inside, Garzgak found a primitive human entertainment system, its screen flickering with the static of a dead signal. Giving light to the dark interior, keeping his weapon raised, he looked around for whoever or whatever he heard speaking. As he searched, he found a doorway leading to a small closet. After looking inside and finding nothing, Garzgak had almost walked away, but before he turned away, he saw motion in the shadows. Looking closer, he saw a small pair of eyes staring at him. It was a human child, and one that appeared to be uninfected. The small human looked up at Garzgak, her body trembling with fear at the sight of the hulking Yagdala. Sensing this, Garzgak put away his blaster and knelt down on one knee to be closer to eye level with the human. "It's okay, little one, I won't hurt you," he said to her, hoping his non-threatening tone was kept by his translator. "You must be hungry. Here, take this," he said, handing her a piece of his rations, which the human took hesitantly. "Conspiring with the enemy, are we, Lieutenant Garzgak?" Garzgak quickly turned around to see Commander Ahsan, the Veshtakis in charge of the invading force for this region of Nysa, along with a pair of heavily armed insectoid Karsakans flanking him. "Commander Ahsan, I didn't expect to—" "Answer the question, Lieutenant." "No, sir." "Then what might that be?" said Ahsan, pointing a bony digit towards the human girl, who was now hiding behind Garzgak's tail. "It's a human child, sir, an uninfected one at that too. I was hoping to—" "Uninfected, you say? Well, that's unfortunate," Ahsan said with false sincerity. "Galactic Alliance records say there are no uninfected humans on Nysa. Therefore, putting it out of its misery would be the only merciful thing to do. But, sir, Garzgak protested, she doesn't have a parasite. She's just an innocent civilian. Arsenic took a deep breath. Lieutenant, our invasion relies on our soldiers believing that they are battling a monstrous plague. If word gets out that many of those humans they killed were uninfected, they will begin to question their loyalty to their leaders, and out here, we cannot have disloyal soldiers. So what you are going to do is take out your weapon, terminate the infected human, and never speak of this again. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Garzgak looked back at the terrified girl behind him. With a deep breath, Garzgak uttered a short prayer. Valda, please forgive me for what I must do. Slowly, he reached for his blaster, pulled it out of his holster, charged a shot, and took aim. Garzgak's blaster was now level with the Veshtaki's head. Apologies, Commander, but I'm afraid I can't do that, he said before pulling the trigger. Instead of blowing up Commander Arsenic's head into a bloody pulp, to Garzgak's shock and horror, the blaster bolt passed through without leaving a mark. Garzgak could now see that he hadn't been speaking to Commander Arsenic, but to his holographic image that was being projected by one of the two Karsakans. Such a pity, said Arsenic's hologram while shaking his head. Poor Lieutenant Garzgak, infected by parasites while in the line of duty, forcing his compatriots to put him out of his misery. Now, if you excuse me, I have a report to make. You two know what to do, he said before vanishing. The Karsakans raised their weapons and fired 2 blasts into Garzgak's chest. Collapsing onto the ground, the world quickly faded, with the last thing he heard being the human girl screaming and an explosion rocking the wrecked house before everything went black. When Garzgak awoke, his head throbbing and his chest felt like it was going to cave in. I thought I was supposed to be free of pain and suffering in the halls of glory, he said to himself, before attempting to sit up, but quickly found that all 4 of his arms were restrained to a medical bed. You're not there yet, Yagdala, said a voice just out of view, but if you keep struggling like that, you may end up accidentally sending yourself there. What? Who's there? Said Garzgak, unable to see the source of the voice. First, you're going to tell us who you are, said a second, slightly different voice. I'm Lieutenant Garzgak of the Galactic Alliance, he said, still trying to find the source of these voices. I suppose that's good enough, said the first voice. Garzgak heard a faint mechanical whirring as the bed he was in started to bend into a sitting position. Before him was a dark-skinned and black-haired human woman who had been sitting where his blind spot was. However, upon closer inspection, he was able to see the inky black tendrils creeping over her shoulders from her back. You're a parasite, Garzgak said with dawning horror. He then remembered the human girl he tried to save. The girl, what happened to the girl? I swear to Voldar, if you've even touched a hair on her, I'll... She's okay, just calm down please. She's just a few rooms down being treated for her malnutrition. Garzgak slumped back down, not taking his eyes off the woman. So what are you going to do to me? Infect me and use my body to sneak into Alliance territory? I'll tell you right now, that won't work. Use your body to... Serna, are you hearing this shit? Said the woman. Honestly, I'm not surprised. The smear campaign against us was unforgiving, she said again, this time with the second voice. Garzgak was confused. Wait, why are you talking like that? Like what? Oh, how rude of us, she said in her first voice. That's because we're 2 people. I'm Dr. Emilia Rupert, and this is my partner, Serna. Sup, said the second voice. But I thought parasites kill their host's brain when they infect them, said Garzgak, his brain struggling to make sense of the being in front of him. Okay, first off, we're called neuroscience. Parasite makes us sound like a disease or something, said Serna. Secondly, we discovered 10 years ago that we can form symbiotic bonds with humans. Together we are stronger, smarter, faster, sexier. I wouldn't exactly say sexier, said Amelia. Hey, don't put yourself down, girl. Anyways, that's beside the point. The point is, we are a symbiote. We both keep our individual minds, share a body with each other, and gain some extra benefits too. Garzgak was surprised at the level of personality coming from the parasite, a symbiote. From what he was told by the Galactic Alliance, they were supposed to be soulless monsters that lived only to breed and infect more people. What was sitting before him was a person, or two people if they were to be believed. However, despite these new developments, one question lingered in his head. Why am I still here? How am I still alive? I believe we can answer that, said a new voice, one that sounded like two people speaking in unison. A tall man in uniform walked in, his icy blue eyes piercing into Garzgak's. You can call us Frank Radaril, and we, Mr. Garzgak, need to talk.